Hello friends, welcome back to another session with me Sanyukta Saxena, Certified Zentangle teacher. Today's session we'll be learning one more Zentangle original as we have been doing in all our previous sessions. The pattern is called Eye-wa. I have already posted a teaser on my page just in case you had a look. So today we'll learn how to draw the pattern Eye-wa, a very simple drama tangle. And we shall also draw a tile together as we do in all our previous sessions using the tangle Eye-wa and a few more tangles to go along, right? So let us get started. See how do we draw the basic pattern Eye-wa and then draw a tile. So Eye-wa is a pattern which is drawn in a square grid, right? So I'm going to draw a square grid here like this. Right? And then I'm going to add these seed shapes inside each of these squares, all in the same direction. Right? So I'm first drawing the pattern as is, and variations can be looked into later. Right? Then I'm going to be inking certain portions. So I'm going to pick up my 08 and alternatively ink the seed shape and the portion other than the seed shape in each of these squares, right? So in the first one I have inked the seed shape. So in the next one I'm not going to ink the seed. I'm going to ink the portion other than the seed, right? So take your time. As I told you, Eye-wa is a drama tangle. As you can see, it involves considerable inking, and this is what adds drama to the tangle. Right, so once we have inked portion other than the seed, the next one is again inking the seed, right? So you can already see the drama, right? Again alternate sections. So the upper one is inked outside the seed shape or the rice shape as we call in Zentangle. So the lower one we will ink the seed shape, right? Accordingly the next one will ink the portion other than the seed, right? Like this, right? So you got an idea of how the tangle, this is the basic of the pattern Eye-wa, a very dramatic tangle, and gives immediate lift to your tile. And the basic stroke is very elementary, the seed shape and a square grid, right? So that's how we draw the tangle Eye-wa. Again in this section we have to ink this part, right? So is it that the grid has to be an absolute square? You can always add a bit of curve to the lines. There is no hard and fast rules that it has to be absolute square straight line grid, right? So as we draw along, I'll show you some tiles also wherein I'll show the variations. So what I was talking about is the lines can always be like this with a slight curve, and then you can do the same thing inside, right? So the only point to remember here is the original pattern has all the seeds in one direction. Now I'll show you some tiles where I give you an idea of how to play around. So this is how you introduce, you know, some variation. This is small dots inside the black portion and a bit of color, so you can see the drama. This is another tile that I've already posted on my Insta. So this is to show you how you can vary the look of Eye-wa by, this is inking the seed, and then I have not inked the other portion. I have added something else. Similarly, these stripes, similarly these, leaf kind of shapes. So you can always play around with the inside and the outside both. Again, here also I have played with the inside. So added that zigzag, right? So there is no hard and fast rule that you have to ink it, but the original patterns requires inking. Again, this is the teaser that I posted. You can see Eye-wa in its original form here, right? And this is a tile that is a tangleation. Again, if you change the direction of the seed, this is what you get. So this is a pattern in itself, looks so beautiful. I have just changed the direction of the seed alternatively, and this is what you get, right? So let us get started. Draw a tile with the pattern Eye-wa, right? So in front of me is a bigger tile. It is an apprentice size tile, and I'm going to start with a pattern called Dream Catcher. I have not drawn this tangle before on a video, so I'll be showing you that how to draw the tangle. It was recently released by Maria also in one of her recent videos on Zentangle, right? So we'll draw two new patterns basically today, but one of it is a Zentangle original, and one Dream Catcher is supposedly by one of the youngest CZTs, right? So let us get started. I am using my pen here and going to draw a semicircle, right? So I'm going to start like this, right? And then I'm going to draw these triangles over the semicircle, like this, right? And then I'm going to be joining these triangles like this. Don't worry too much about straight lines or curved lines. You can always add a bit of curve here, right? And going to, just like cubine, add a smaller square inside the bigger one and ink it. Right, so looks just like cubine. Once we connect this corner to the opposite corner, right? So now I'm going to join this end here, like this, right? So once I've done that, I'm going to be adding one more layer. So add, again link these two tips like this, right? And then again do the same exercise of adding these square blocks inside, like this, and then joining to the other end, right? So same thing. So take your time and ink slowly. And the last one here. So this is the basic of the pattern dream catcher. You can go on extending it more, add another third layer, but I don't feel the need to, or maybe we can. Okay, so I'm going to add one more. Right, and then do the same exercise of adding an inner square. Right, so this is how the tangle looks like after I've inked all the sections, the inside square, and then just joined these corners to the corner facing it. Now I'm going to draw these lines, basically extend these center lines to the edges of my tile, and then draw two more. So what I am doing here is preparing my grid for the next pattern, that is Eye-wa. And what I am going to do here is, in all the previous tiles that we have seen, we have not really played with the grid, right? So these are all square grids, right? Absolute squares. These are all square grids. So now what I'm going to do is change the grid and see what happens, right? So I'm going to be using a zigzag grid now, and then see what happens to my Eye-wa. So this is basically the grid that we use for the pattern jongle. So I'm going to be using this grid and then place my Eye-wa inside it, right? So it's just that instead of the square, we are using these blocks for the pattern Eye-wa. And let's see how does it work out to be, right? So we always draw it in a square grid, just in case it is not an absolute square, then what happens to the pattern, we'll come to know shortly. So this is the grid that we use to draw the pattern jongle. If you haven't seen the pattern or you don't know about the pattern, please refer to my previous video. Right, so we are done with the grid, and now I'm going to be adding those seed shapes, right? So let's get started. So I'm going to add these, but I'm going to add them in the opposite direction. So I'm not adding them all in the same direction. I'm going to add them in the alternate directions, right? So having some fun with the pattern Eye-wa. Otherwise it is a very simple pattern to draw, and it looks nice that way, but just adding a little fun factor and seeing how does it work out, right? So again, adding this seed shape in each of these sections that I have created alternatively, right? So this is how Eye-wa looks like after filling in the seed shape in all the squares or the grid that I had created, right? Now we'll start inking right away. So first, starting with inking outside the seed shape. So we are going to keep it simple here since we have already played with the grid, so we'll just ink alternatively the way we are supposed to. Right. Yeah. So again, starting with inking the seed shape. And then the section other than the seed shape. So it's great fun to see your tile going black from white and how the tangle turns out to be after you have inked all sections. So it's real fun, and that surprise element is there because you haven't tried this before. So or maybe you have, but it's always a fun to play around, you know, create something new out of the already existing. But I would first advise you to master the basic pattern, right, and then venture into creating tangulations. The basic pattern as is always looks nice, there is no question about it. Creating tangulations is about adding that zen or fun factor, extending the pattern beyond, right? So in this one we are playing with the grid of Eye-wa. As I told you, I have deviated from the traditional square grid and added a little zen, right? I've already also changed the direction of the seed shapes alternatively, although they face in the same direction, they are drawn in the same direction in the original tangle. In this one they are drawn in alternate directions, right? So this is going to take a while, so I am going to slowly ink them all, and then we'll see how does the tile turn out to be, right? So as you can see here, I have already reached the last few rows or columns of my Eye-wa. I'm still in the process of inking. This is going to take a bit of time, so just go easy, take your time and enjoy the process. You can already see the drama that the inking has added to a simple tile, a simple pattern, right? So as I told you, I'm alternatively inking the seed shape in one and the area outside the seed shape in the other one, right? So again, continuing with the process. So you can always add something more inside the seed shape which is empty, or you can just play with the black and white effect, entirely up to you. Right. So as I always say, inking is a very integral part of the Zentangle process method of drawing. It is as much like drawing a tangle because it is a very integral part of the tangle, right? So yeah, I think we are done. So this is how the Tangle Eye-wa looks in a different grid with the seeds facing in opposite direction. So now we can straight on move on to the shading part, right? So let me just join this at few places, right? And then let us move on to shading. So I'm going to add some graphite here, and then just the way we shade our cubine, I'm going to add on one side, right? You can either completely add graphite or just add graphite at the edges of this section. Will serve the same purpose, right? Again, moving on to the next row. And the last one. So these petal shapes are actually cubines, but they are arranged in a particular fashion. The tangle is called dream catcher, right? And then I'm going to add graphite on one side. Yeah. So alternatively, not on all lines. Leave this line, again the next line, leave this line, again the next line, leave this line, again the next line, right? And the middle line which I have left, I will be highlighting it with my chalk, right? So let us start blending first. So pulling the graphite from the edges towards the center. Like this, right? Then blending, almost covering one section of the cubine, to add that depth. You can always choose the other section also. So blend it well, should not look patchy. Right? So that's how our Tangle dream catcher looks like after shading. And then we move on to our Eye-wa tangleation. right? I'm going to blend. There's no need to actually add graphite on the inked sections. Just blending what is there on the white. So take your time and pull it towards the center, but don't cover the entire column, right? And then we are going to add a highlight on the line here, right? So it should basically show on the black section, then only it will be visible, like this. Right, again on the blacks here. Yeah, that's about it. Use another blending stump and just soften the chalk. Yep. If you wish, you can just add some dotted line here just to give it a completed look. Not exactly line, but just joining the loose ends like this, right? So this is our tile, completed one. The pattern Eye-wa Tangleation along with dream catcher. So I'm going to close my tile here, right, and sign and date it. So this is how we can play around with Eye-wa if we change the grid, and these are Eye-was in the traditional square grid, right? So I'll be posting all these styles. I've already posted a few on my Insta. I'll be posting on my Facebook page by the name Sanyukta Zentangle. Do subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. Till then, take care. Bye bye. See you. Stay safe.